Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
In a world where overspending, debt, and keeping up with the Joneses rules us all, where the voices from the merchants, restaurants, and credit companies lord over the common man. Out of the darkness, like a beacon of hope, comes a new voice, a voice that's rich and creamy, like your favorite butter, and delicious, like cheeseburger pizza on your diet cheat day. It's The Stacking Benjamin Show.
Live from Joe's mom's basement, it's The Stacking Benjamin Show. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and how's your trip going as you move up the wealth ladder? Today, we'll help you move faster with a guy who's going to explain how we should invest differently depending on where we are in life, the man behind the popular Of Dollars and Data blog, and the COO of Ritholtz Wealth Management, Nick Maggiulli. In our headline segment, one golfer reflects on the big moments in life. What does that have to do with your happiness? We'll share. And then I'd step into the shower if I were you, because I'll probably make your head explode with my incredible trivia. You know, because it'll be easier to clean up later. Anyway, now 3 guys who think diversification means separating the snacks into multiple drawers down here. It's Joe, OG, and Doc G. That feels wrong.
Hey there, Stackers. Happy Wednesday. We're so happy you're here with us. You made it. You found us. Sit back and relax because, man, we've got some goodness. Nick Maggiulli is coming down to the basement, but as you heard, we have a special guest co-host with us here, OG. How are you, my friend?
I'm not a fan of
Nick Maggiulli.
I thought he was going to say he's not a fan of the co-host, but
The new intro.
The new intro being
Doc G.
Oh,
like nails on a
I was wondering where
chalkboard.
he was going. I'm like, what's new?
I thought he hated his own G. I thought you'd be happy to
He doesn't like somebody else stealing the thunder, Doug.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
a little love. OG just showed me some love, and I didn't even. Wow.
you've got old G and new G.
And that voice that you're hearing is the Doc G himself. He's the host of Earn and Invest and the author behind super bestsellers, Taking Stock in the Purpose Code. Dr. Jordan Grumet is here. How are you, man?
I'm good. Just don't make me answer any trivia questions, please. No more trivia.
Well, the fact that, you should be giving him a hug because this guy has won so many trivia contests on your behalf this year. I think it's been a 2-man team propelling you to first place on our Friday trivia.
You think so? Okay.
Well, let's talk
A
about
1
something
3/4 team. I'll take that.
Team G. Team G.
Team G.
Let's
Team
talk
G.
about something that's not trivial, which is this appearance by Nick Maggiulli. We, on Monday, dove into this idea of the wealth ladder and the fact that when you're just starting out, there's nothing really that is trivial. You've got to pay attention to all the little things to make sure that life goes well for you. And then when you get up the wealth ladder, that now you can start making some decisions that you could make before. Get the wine with the meal at the restaurant. It's no big deal. Pay $1,000 or more to upgrade your seat on the airplane. No big deal. It's not going to affect your net worth. And I guess a question for you, Jordan, is, You know, in your first book, Taking Stock, you talk about when people pass away. Have you found that as people are further up the wealth ladder, that their end of life feelings about their life change? They feel more fulfilled as they go up the wealth ladder?
I actually have found that generally people complain of the same things and they have the same regrets, and it doesn't really matter where you are on the wealth spectrum. So yes, people who are incredibly poor might talk a little bit about money. But other than that, really people talk about they regret not doing the things that were the most important to them or the relationships that were the most important to them. And so a lot of times it isn't someone saying, boy, I wish I made more money. It's almost always, boy, I wish I had the courage to do this thing that was important to me, or boy, do I wish I fixed that relationship.
And this is why I think, OG, this idea of the wealth ladder is important. It isn't just growing your net worth. It's about not stepping in it so you can continue to just do the things that are truly important. You know what I mean? In the beginning, we talked about on Monday, maybe being too conservative on one hand by over diversifying into bonds or ridiculous investments, your brother-in-law's restaurant, maybe doing things like that, which are not great. But on the other side, not being conservative enough by foregoing insurances or having too much money sit in cash. Like, it's as much about not stepping in it as it is about growing your net worth more quickly.
You still have to have a plan for what all of this is going to turn into. I mean, Joe, you've talked to a lot of people in your life. I talk to people every week. Jordan, you've talked to tons of people about money and health and life planning, basically. And it doesn't matter if you have $100,000 or $1 million or $10 million. If you don't have a plan for what you want to do in your life, or if you're generally not content with what things are, there's no amount of wealth or income that's going to solve that. And if you just think that, well, all I need to do is a little bit more, then finally I'll insert thing here, you're not going to do that. You know, we famously say it quite often on the show. If you don't donate 10% of your income to charity when you make $100,000 a year, you're not going to donate 10,000 or 10% of your salary when you make $1 million. And a lot of times people think that. They go, well, right now I can't, but if I could just make insert thing here, then I'll be able to do the thing that I want. Sometimes doing the thing that you want isn't necessarily writing a check type of experience, right? Being good to your spouse or developing relationships or hanging out with your kids and going to a ball game or whatever it is, isn't necessarily about like, I need to make twice the net worth, because you can go to the Rangers game for $15 a ticket if you want. They're not box seats, in the suite, but is it that much better? I don't know.
But it's a sweet standing room ticket.
See what you did there. So having double the money or double the net worth doesn't necessarily solve your problems if you're still only thinking that I don't have this life plan, I'm going to figure this out later. So I think you need to be who you're going to be, understand what you're shooting for, and then use the money and the building of your wealth to free up the time necessary to do the stuff that you want to do. And if you do that, it doesn't matter how much money you have.
And that is the perfect introduction, OG, because I think Nick Maggiulli is the best guy to talk about this. He is a data scientist who created this amazing blog called Of Dollars and Data. Because if you're going to go down a road, it's best to find out who's gone down this road before you and how did they find success. We talked on Monday a little bit about Alex Hormozi early in the year saying that you pay an ignorance tax.
Well, you pay the ignorance tax.
No, you do. No, you pay it.
You pay it.
I don't pay it. You pay it. If you don't do this type of research. So Nick has already done a ton of the research around how people have gotten wealthy. He's the chief operating officer in data science at Ritholtz Wealth Management, one of the top money management firms in the nation. Author, as I mentioned earlier, of the very, very highly regarded and must-read blogs on the internet when it comes to money, Of Dollars and Data, where he focuses on the intersection of data and personal finance. You've seen him all over the place. Today, he's going to be mentoring us on climbing the wealth ladder. But before we get to that, we've got a couple of sponsors who make sure we can keep on keeping on, and you don't pay for any of the amazing mentors, not just Nick, but Jordan, OG, Doug, me. You don't pay for any of this goodness. We're going to hear from them. And then Nick Maggiulli coming down to Mom's Basement to talk about climbing the wealth ladder. You may not know that when we started Stacking Benjamins, it was a blog. And even then, just the startup cost, I remember thinking, is this the right thing? And what if I write things and nobody comes, right? Well, luckily that didn't end up happening, but starting something new isn't just hard. It's terrifying. There's so much work. You're not sure whether it's going to work out. You're not sure if anybody's going to read it. And then we change it to a podcast. Is anybody actually going to listen, right? What if nobody wants all the stuff that we have? Well, had I used Shopify, it would have been even easier, because with their expertise, their helpful tools, and their easy to use platform, that's something that would have made Stacking Benjamins more effective much, much more quickly. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Names you've heard of like Heinz and Mattel, Shopify, Gymshark, Aviator Nation, Allbirds, also all Shopify. Get started with your own design studio with hundreds of ready-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand style. And best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and beyond. And did I mention that iconic purple Shop Pay button? It's used by millions of businesses around the world. It's why Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. It also helps boost conversions, meaning less carts going abandoned and more sales for you. So you're stacking Benjamins much more quickly. Time to turn those what ifs into with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/SB. Go to shopify.com/SB. That's shopify.com/SB. Dell PCs with Intel Inside are built for the moments you plan and the ones you don't. They're for those all-night study sessions, the moment you're working from a cafe and realize every outlet's taken, the times you're deep in your flow and can't be interrupted by an auto update. That's why Dell builds tech that adapts to you. Built with long-lasting batteries so you're not scrambling for an outlet, and built-in intelligence that makes updates around your schedule, not in the middle of it. Find technology built for the way you work at Dell.com/Dell PCs. Built for you. And I'm super happy he's back in the basement. Nick Maggiulli's here. How are you, my friend?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on again, Joe. Appreciate it.
Dude, I feel like the Ritholtz people just taking over our podcast. Can we just call it? We just had Barry here. We had Josh here. We get Nick twice this year. Like, what the hell's going on?
Hey, man, we're just out there putting out content, trying to help people as much as we can.
And you guys totally are. This project is interesting, and I want to start where you start. You played chess as a kid?
Yeah, I played a lot. My dad taught me when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and started playing his friends who didn't really know how to play. So I beat them, and they would be shocked when like a little kindergartner plays. You know, I wasn't like a prodigy. I was just good enough to beat them, which is all you needed. Pretty low bar. Yeah, it was fun. I played a little bit as a kid. Then my parents divorced. I didn't really play as much. Then I kind of got back into it in high school, and it was just a fun journey. And there's really a lot of analogies between chess and building wealth and life, and a lot of stuff there, which, you know, if you really think it through, it's actually kind of interesting.
Well, I want to ask you about that analogy in a second, but I remember I was okay at chess. I like board games in general, but I read Bobby Fischer's guide. Did you read Bobby Fischer's guide?
I did not read Bobby Fischer's guide, unfortunately.
So Bobby Fischer's guide is really cool because it just gives you a scenario. Like it shows you the chessboard in a scenario,
Yep.
and then it tells you to solve it, and you turn the page and it gives you the answer. And then you get done looking at it this way, and then you turn the book over, and the second half is just more advanced things going on. So it was really neat. And my opens got really good. So I was super good at like the first 15 minutes of a game. If I hadn't blown you out of the water in the first 10 minutes by not making stupid mistakes, Nick, you'd have your way with me. Like I was absolutely horrible. But when I was reading your introduction, you had kind of the same lesson when you came up against some better chess players.
Yeah, same thing. I literally just memorized openings, got very good at that. So I knew my openings well. I knew kind of how to respond to most things. But you're right. As soon as it started going into a territory I wasn't familiar with, I would have lost the same thing. I think that's how a lot of people learn chess. Like, it's like, oh, just learn how to do the opening, learn how to trick people, mate them early. Like, I knew the 4-move checkmate, all those things. It doesn't work against a real chess player. Like, they know all that already, right? Because they learned that already.
Yeah.
So it's just fun to kind of thinking through those things.
Yeah, I remember you saying, well, you know, this guy, sometimes he would play along with you, sometimes he wouldn't. Every time would look at his open, he would do something totally different. You're like, how the hell do I even learn anything from this? So speaking of learning something from this, what's the point? What does this have to do with building a quote wealth ladder?
Well, I think the idea in chess, and I think everyone who's played chess has kind of had this moment happen to them at least once a game, if not more. At one point in time, a certain strategy may look like it makes sense, but then in the future, literally one move later, it's like, actually, that doesn't make sense anymore, or a new possibility's been opened up. And I think the same thing is true when we think about building wealth. What you used to do for money may not make sense what you do for money today, right? That's in terms of the income side. We can think about that in the spending decisions. We can think about that with your investment decisions, et cetera. And so as you build wealth, you kind of need to change your strategy. And that's kind of the main idea here. Just like a fitness coach would give different exercise advice to a morbidly obese person versus a well-trained athlete, I think we need to do the same thing with our financial advice, where it needs to change a little bit depending on where you are and, more importantly, where you want to go. So that's where I'm coming from here.
You and I had this discussion when we were in New York a few months ago that, it's like people in their 20s spend a ton of time thinking about this hardcore diversification, Nick, when that's not a strategy for a level one. That's a strategy for somebody who's further along the path.
Yeah, exactly. So depending on how much wealth you have and how much your wealth can generate in terms of income, that's really the big thing to kind of take into account here.
You've got this cool number, this cool rubric to think about what's a trivial amount of money for you. And it's 0.01% of the wealth you have is generally a rule of thumb of that's the number that you think of, oh, yeah, okay, I'll make that decision. That's fine. So as an example, if you're a stacker out there who's hit the $1 million mark, that means $100 to you. You're like, whatever, $100 is no big deal.
Yeah. So that's called the 0.01% rule, which is just
great name, by the way.
Your wealth. Yeah. Your wealth times 0.01%, or you can divide by 10,000, whatever is easier for you on the calculator. Yeah. So if you said a stacker with $1 million, $100 to you, no big deal. It's a trivial amount of money. And so I think that's a useful metric to use your net worth or your wealth, because it allows your lifestyle to creep, but only after you've shown financial discipline. After you've built the wealth, then you can let your lifestyle creep. Seeing a raise in income, you could let your lifestyle creep, but you could lose that income. It's really, there's a lot of unknowns. Income can be fickle. I think with wealth, it's like, look, I've proven I can do this. I can save money, invest, build my wealth. So now I can spend a little bit more. You can kind of allow the purse strings to loosen up a little bit. So that's kind of my thinking on it. And obviously that depends on every wealth level, and we can get into that once I provide the framework. I think it's a little bit easier to understand.
Yeah, well, let's do that right now. So you have these different levels on the ladder that people are at. And really what's a good move for level 1, different than a good move for level 5. So let's walk through them. Level 1, you call paycheck to paycheck level. What level of wealth is that, Nick?
That's less. So by the way, this is all net worth. So all of your assets minus all of your liabilities. So that's going to be obviously, your car, your home, stocks, cash in a bank account. That's your assets. Subtract out your liabilities. That's going to be like your mortgage debt, credit card debt, student loans, etc. You get that number. Hopefully it's a positive number. Hopefully it's a large positive number, right? Level 1, that's less than $10,000 in wealth. That's about 20% of U.S. households. Level 2, that's $10,000 to $100,000 in wealth. That's also about 20% of U.S. households. Level 3.
Can we talk about the decision on these before we move on? Because your first 10,000 paycheck to paycheck, just going back to that 0.01 rule, every single decision a paycheck to paycheck person makes, there is no trivial amount of money. There is truly no such thing for this person. Level 2, by the way, which you're getting to, you call grocery freedom. And that's because these $10 decisions can be trivial. Do you go with the more expensive milk or the less expensive milk? You can go with maybe your favorite and it's going to be okay.
Yeah, by the time you get deeper into level 2, which is anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000 is the end of level 2, that's exactly where you have that grocery freedom. And then once we get into level 3, that's what I call restaurant freedom. And that's $100,000 to $1 million in wealth. And that's going to be about 40% of U.S. households. That's what I'm going to call the typical middle class, right? That's about, I know it's going to say that's middle class up to $1 million, but with real estate prices, retirement accounts, and everything where they are today, 100,000 to $1 million really is like middle class in most of the United States.
Sure. And you and I have had this conversation before. You like a glass of wine. I like a glass of wine. Everybody knows a glass of wine at a restaurant is a ripoff, but you call it restaurant freedom because you can order the damn glass of wine and who cares?
Yeah. Once you're, as I said, if we use the 0.01% rule and let's say a glass of wine is, let's say $15, $20, your net worth has to be somewhere in the $150K to $200,000 range. And really, if you want to be specific here, you should use your liquid net worth, because like you could own a home for, you could have a $200,000 home, and if you have no cash in your bank account, obviously you shouldn't be spending that much on a wine. Just assume your liquid net worth, so take out retirement accounts, take out your home equity, anything like that, and that's a good metric to use there.
So that's up to $1 million. Then level 4.
Level 4 is 1 to 10 million. That's what I call travel freedom, and that's where you can start to get a nicer seat on the airplane, stay at a nicer hotel, etc. You can't fly private yet. That is actually level 5. That's the highest form of travel freedom. But in general, we don't see people flying private until they either have $2 million in annual income or $20 million in wealth, that is just a lot of money, a ton of money. So it's very rare. Yeah.
I was about to call it a good start, but you can't live on it.
Yeah.
Level 6, you call then impact freedom, to your point.
Yeah. Level 5 is, so level 5 is 10 million to 100 million. That's what I call house freedom. You can kind of buy a house basically anywhere you want. And then level 6 is impact freedom, which is 100 million plus. Now, the nice thing about these levels, if you just memorize that level 3 is 100K to $1 million, you can back out all the rest. You just multiply by 10 to go up or divide by 10 to go down, right? So once you kind of get the hang of this, I'll start saying the levels and I won't have to repeat the net worth values all the time. It's just very easy at that point.
And as you're talking, I'm thinking about the millionaire next door, and you brought up the way that you fly. Like, you can't identify a lot of the time, Nick, the millionaire next door, because this person has millions of dollars, but they're still flying economy.
Yep.
Why is this? Is some people that are level 5, level 6 still spend money like they're level 2?
Some people in level 5 just don't want to spend, they think it's a ripoff to spend $10,000 an hour or something to get a private plane, right? To rent it temporarily. And that is quite expensive. I mean, a business class flight, I guess it depends. Like if you have 4 people and you need to put them on a business class flight across the US and it's $2,500 each, do I want to spend that much, or do I want to spend, let's say you have 4 people, you're going to spend 10 grand on that, or it's a 4-hour flight or something, you're going to be spending 40 grand. I don't know. It's a question. Is that worth it for you? Right. These are the types of questions, and not a question I ever have to deal with. And most people never have to deal with, but it's something you have to think about at that level.
I think on this side, as I was reading your words, I also thought that it isn't about spending less if you choose to spend less. It's like some people that are level 2 are looking at people level 5, and they're making these, somebody pulls up next to you, Nick, and they're driving a Lamborghini, and you're like, oh, this guy thinks he's hot. Well, the Lamborghini to him, if he's level 6, might be an afterthought. Where to you at level 2, that's going to not only eat up your whole paycheck, you might as well live in it.
You'd have debt too. Yeah, you would have debt at that point as well. And once again, you can't really know, like obviously the people in level 5 and 6 who can't afford those supercars, many of those people don't even own those. Like that's just not something they do, which is ironic. And some of the people that have those they have them on debt, they're borrowing them, they rent them for a day. All sorts of stuff, social media influencers rent houses and stuff to look rich when they actually aren't. So it's very interesting how that works.
Let's do a quick case study. Who is Konosuke Matsushita? I think I got that.
Yeah, no, that's how we would say it as English speakers, as Matsushita. It's very difficult. I had to do all this in the audiobook.
I pronounced that like a natural.
He was the founder of Panasonic, and his story is really interesting. And it's actually a really good parallel for thinking about the wealth ladder, because he started working when he was 9 years old. He eventually got an internship, started working in the electrical industry, right when electricity was coming out. Then he started working at this company, worked all the way to the top of the company, at least for his position by age 22. He couldn't make any more money. He was maxed out. He started inventing other things. He invented this bicycle lamp, and he brought it to a supervisor like, hey, this could sell a lot. And the supervisor told him, no, this is silly. Stop doing this. Just do your job. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to take this out to market, started his own business, started selling them, was doing everything for the business. At some point he was getting too busy. He hired someone, right? So he went through all these stages, which are very similar to like levels on the wealth ladder, except with his career. At one point he was learning from someone. At another point, he kind of learned everything he could learn, was maxed out at his job. Then he realized to get to the next level, he had to go create his own business. And then to get that business to get bigger, he had to hire people and create divisions. And by the time of his death, it was like the largest electronics company in the world, right? In the late 80s. And so he was called the god of management because he realized how to manage people, create, autonomous divisions, and really was great for Japan and a lot for corporate strategy, did a lot for that in that country.
It was funny. I was talking to my son about him and about some of the lessons. Like I remember this thing I tried to teach my kids when they were little, and he's 30 now, and we just went to lunch together. And I said, a mistake I kind of made was that, my dad was a blue collar guy. And he said, you know what? We might not always be the smartest people in the room, but we won't be outworked.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked hard to teach my kids that. And a mistake that I made in my career was that because of the fact that my dad was a strong part of my life, I held on to that into level 3 and into where I'm like, yeah, you might be smarter than me. And there were some things I did that were completely stupid because I was working harder than you at something that was completely irrelevant. So I love this idea of him at Panasonic and the fact that what you focus on, depending on the level you're at, 100% matters to the game you're playing.
Yeah, I think people realize this. I mean, maybe eventually too late, but it's not just your effort that determines results. There are people out there in this country that are working more hours, working harder than CEOs at other companies, and they're making a fraction of their pay. And so it's not, I think people know this intrinsically. It's not just completely linked to effort. It's what you work on, the types of things you work on, what you say no to. And of course, effort matters. I don't want to say that, oh, every person that's doing well didn't put an effort. No, there's usually a lot of effort, but it's where you direct the effort, how you guide it, et cetera. So I completely agree with that. And I think the reason this happens is people get caught up in their habits. If you do something, you get very good at it. It gets easy. It's automatic. You just keep doing that thing. But if you just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, you will get better. But at some point, like, you're getting diminishing returns. You're not really, extracting more. You're not learning more, et cetera. And then you're not progressing. And so sometimes you need to try something new, change things up. And that's what this book is about. It's trying to be like a wake up call for those people that feel like they're stuck in a certain financial level in their life.
I love the idea that sometimes you got to break the habit. The habit's not great. In fact, I think you should tweet that to James Clear. Hey, James, sometimes these atomic habits aren't, no, I'm kidding. You frame this around this concept of opportunity cost. I'm assuming a lot of our stackers have understand the idea of opportunity cost, but can you go through how examining whether something is going to make sense career-wise, and if you're thinking about making money, how opportunity cost is a piece of this equation?
Yeah. So it's like, what else could you be doing with your time? That's always the question. And I don't want you to think about this like throughout the rest of your life and drive yourself mad with like, oh, I can't spend time with my kids. I should be, earning
right,
more
then
money.
You're
Like,
just paralyzed.
I don't want you doing that either. I think there is a question of, okay, what am I doing with my time? And does this make sense? The example I give, I'm actually right now, I'm in Southern California. I'm at my father's house. When we were young, all the cans we would drink out of, we would collect all those cans, put them in a thing and take them down, get a bag or two, and you get about $20 per bag. Maybe now it's a little more. I don't actually know. They haven't changed the CRV. So it's the same price today. You get a couple $20 per bag or something. My dad doesn't do that anymore. Neither do I, because it's not worth our time. He could be calling a client. He sells insurance and stuff. So there's so many other things we could be doing that even that little thing, like, yes, we still recycle, but we're not going to go put them in bags, take them down and separate them. Like, it's just too much work for not a lot of effort. And I think that analogy, maybe it's not collecting cans, but in your career, you're still collecting cans and you need to be doing something else and figuring out what that is. I can't answer that for you because it's a very case by case thing, but figuring out what can I be doing to grow my wealth in a different way. And that's kind of where the thinking comes in.
Let's go through some of these. You say, though, at level 1 to get to level 2, hourly jobs are fine, like working your ass off. You can go from level 1 to level 2 by working your ass off, and it's not a bad lesson to learn.
Exactly. It's definitely true. Like odd jobs, doing all sorts of stuff. I don't think there's, if you don't have wealth and you're like in a tough situation, like there should be almost nothing beneath you, unless it's like obviously like dignity or something bad to your family or something. Outside of that, if it's like, hey, hard work's hard work and you got to work to get somewhere.
If you're trying to go from level 2 to level 3, and again, this is from 100,000 to 1 million. If you're trying to go there, you really need to start thinking about highly skilled work or spending time on the right things. Level 3 to level 4, think about career advancements. Why do you have side hustles at level 3? Is it because finally you have a little bit of time independence when you get to level 3?
Yeah, I think that's a piece of it. You need to have some I don't want to say main hustle. You need to have some main thing going that's doing decently before you can necessarily do a side hustle. And obviously it really depends. If let's say you're young, you can live with your parents, you have very low cost, then yeah, you can start your side hustle whenever. But if you have a lot of costs, you have to pay rent, you have to do all these things, and you don't have a lot of money, you need to have some stability in your main job before you can start doing a side hustle, right? And so, of course, some people don't do that. They just skim by and they figure it out and they end up doing really well. But I think security is the most important thing, especially level 1, level 2, getting to that first base level of security. Do that, then go and venture and do all this other stuff. Because if you don't, you could end up in financial insecurity for a very long time. 50% of the financial distress events in the United States, bankruptcies, delinquencies, et cetera, are experienced by just 10% of the household. So it's a small percentage of people that get caught in these spirals and they almost never get out. And it's a tragedy. It really is a tragedy, but that's what I'm trying to prevent here. And so I'm like, hey, whatever you can do to get to some level of safety, then you can start experimenting. It's the same thing Matsushita did. He didn't go and I'm going to start my business, before I know how to even do this. No, he waited until he worked his way up and then he made that decision. I think his life is a perfect example of how you might want to do your career, right? In terms of knowing when to make those jumps.
I think about people like Bill Gates. I listen to the Acquire podcast. So you always hear about these founders and how they started young. They didn't wait until level 4 to start a business. Mm-hmm. These people out of the womb are starting businesses. And to your point, it could be huge win or huge loss. How do you think about this? If somebody's 25 and they're really excited about being an entrepreneur, somebody like Cody Sanchez, who are teaching people how to buy businesses versus buying a mutual fund or an exchange traded fund, which is going to be much safer. There's a lot more liquidity events. It's easier to analyze a mutual fund versus starting a Main Street business.
I think you don't have to be in level 4 before you start a business. The lowest risk way to start a business and be fine is starting in level 4, where you have resources, have time. If you actually look at the data, most of the entrepreneurs are in their 40s, not their 20s. So that's one thing. Why? Because they have money and experience, two things that are very helpful.
And that's 100%, Nick. A myth that people have is that it's young people starting businesses.
Yeah, they just get the media attention. Yeah, that's it.
Exactly. Right. Most of the successful businesses, I remember the downsizing of General Electric and IBM and all these companies over the years. And you see the engineers that come out of these businesses. These are people 40s, 50s, even 60s that have liquidity. They know the who's, they know the people that will back the company. They are rock stars versus somebody that, how many times have you seen somebody who's starting a restaurant and they're working off their last $30,000?
Yeah, it's really tough. And so I think thinking through that, you don't have to be in that level. It just de-risks a lot when you're in that level. And the data shows that those people that have more experience, age, et cetera, they're more likely to succeed, right? All else equal. You don't have to be in the level. You can have that level through extension. For example, you bring up Bill Gates. Bill Gates was not in level 1, even if it's his net worth was 0, through his family, his connections, his education. I would never say I was in level 1, despite the fact that my net worth wasn't over $10,000 for, I think, the first 8 to 10 months when I was working, right? It took me a while to get there. But because of family extensions, my education, I never was in level 1. And so I would argue that Bill Gates has been in his whole life in level 3, maybe even level 4 through proxy. So he kind of was there in the sense of he had that family wealth and he had those connections through his family and stuff. And so once you think of wealth in a little bit of a broader definition, I think you can realize, oh yeah, a lot of these people that start these companies, they're not super, super loaded, but they don't come from poor families either. Zuckerberg's not from a poor family. Evan Spiegel, Snapchat's not from a poor family. Bezos isn't from a poor family, right? There are some that are, but for the most part, just generally not true.
Bill Gates, to your point, I never knew what a rock star both of his parents were. Dad, one of the top lawyers in Seattle. And even before Bill was anybody, everybody knew Bill Gates Sr. as a real badass. You make this point. I had somebody actually write me, a friend of mine, Becky. Becky's probably listening right now. So Becky, I'm talking about you. In the conversation, Becky, you and I had in Denver, she was telling me, Joe, you concentrate on income a ton. And you always talk about building your income to build your net worth. Becky was all about, you can build your net worth without having more income. And I think you prove through a lot of data in your book that yes, you can, but it's not as likely as if you just focus on building your income first.
Yeah, it's tough. The only way you can do that, you just need more time. And so it's a question of timing. If you're just I can save this much amount per month, okay, to build wealth, it's just going to take longer, right? It's much easier when you have that income, because if you look at the data on average, spending rises with income, but it rises much more slowly than income does, which is that creates this wedge, which is basically your savings, which you can invest. And if you invest that in income producing assets, that's kicking off more income. So your income grows even more. And then you have this flywheel going where your money's even earning more than you are at some point. And that's where you start to get into real wealth building, where your money's earning more than you do from working. And then you're like, what the heck's going on here? Is my job a side hustle? It's a funny joke, but it's very true.
What was the stat you shared about Elon Musk?
Oh, how quickly. So between 2020 and 2021 was the fastest growth in wealth in human history. I think he made $100 million a week or something on average between the low in 20. Obviously, I'm picking March 2020 because it's the low or wherever the low was for Tesla.
Right, but still,
up through 2021 when Tesla just shot up and became super popular and Musk got even more popular. And over that period, he was making like $6,000 a second. I think if I calculated that correctly, which is insane to think about. And of course, it's not like liquid, like paper. You can just take it out. It's like on paper, but you get the point that I've never seen anything like that. And it's just crazy. And we may see something like that again, but who knows how long it's going to take.
I think you mentioned that his net worth gain during that time frame would have put him on something like the top 10 richest people. Just the gain
just
alone.
The gain puts him on the Forbes list. Yeah. I said, okay, what did I say? The increase in Musk's wealth in a single week would have qualified for the Forbes 400 list on its own. Yeah. Every time he went to sleep, he woke up $100 million richer.
This is what a ninja Nick Maggiulli is, everybody. For those of you not watching this on video, he just picked up, turned to the page, and he's got it right there. Yeah. That's called knowing your book, Nick. Let's talk about leveraging your income, because depending on what level you are, if you're level 1, it probably makes sense to do everything yourself and to not use leverage and to just build that muscle and build the foundation. Let's talk about the oldest way people have started to get ahead, and this is hiring other people. I remember when I got to the point as a financial planner where my time was worth more than the money I was spending. So hiring people to do stuff for me made 100% sense. I remember calling my local grocery store and I told them, and this is, by the way, probably 1995, 96, Nick. Mm-hmm. And I said, here's what I want to have happen. I want somebody to buy groceries for me. I want them to go to the grocery store and buy all these groceries for me. Nick, they didn't know what the hell I was talking about. Like they're like, yeah, we can't do that. I'm like, no. I really don't have time to buy groceries. I want somebody else to do that. If only I had thought bigger.
Yeah, if you just said, wait, why can't I make that? The idea has been there, but without the infrastructure for it, you can't do it. It's a great point. Like you knew, like, I just need someone to do this. I'm willing to pay them whatever to get this done.
Yeah. So hiring other people as leverage. What's the upside? What's the downside?
The hiring of other people, especially if obviously in the case of running a business, is, they're freeing up your time to do hopefully higher value generating activities. I'm guessing that's revenue generating. In your case, if you're a financial planner, maybe you're calling prospects, etc. And buy back your time. There's a book out there that's actually really cool. It's just like, just buy back your time. As soon as you realize you're too busy, find ways to buy back your time and just start doing that throughout your business. That's the upside, right? It's like you're paying someone less than the value they're generating, so you as a whole make more money. The downside is you have to deal with people, and people can be difficult to deal with. It's not like a machine or a computer that's just going to do the same thing every time and do exactly what it's told. It's someone that has emotions and feelings and things happen in their life. And so that can be difficult. Some people love that. Some don't like that. And so that's kind of one of the pluses and minuses is dealing with people. If you get good at it, obviously it's a very valuable skill to have, working with people and all that. But it is one of the difficulties of using like labor as a form of leverage.
It doesn't seem like a great level 1, level 2 strategy.
Well, first off, you don't necessarily have the money to even do that. So it's not even possible for a lot of people in those levels. I think you really have to have some resources. Once again, goes back to our old point, like you need some resources to start a business or something like that. Unless you have people that are willing to work for free or something, which doesn't really happen, then that's your only choice.
And that's the bummer. People won't work for free.
Yeah.
I hate that. Second way you can leverage, you right, is deploying your money. I remember reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? My favorite part of that book is the fact, the big aha that I got, Nick, that I could go to work, but my money could have a lunch pail. Remember that analogy? My money would take a lunch pail and it would go to work, but it would work 24/7 and wouldn't demand a break. Like that was pretty badass. I was like, bam. What's the upside and downside to deploying your money to work for you?
The upside is, you're right. It keeps working for you, right? You can use money to buy income producing assets. Those will create income. The downside is sometimes those assets go down in value. And so it's not making as much money. It could actually lose you money. So some of your wealth, which would have been okay in, let's say, a U.S. Treasury bill, assuming the Treasury's solvent and everything, could lose you money in a riskier asset class or an individual asset, like buying an individual company versus a diversified basket of stocks, for example. So those are the risks there and things to think about when you're deploying capital.
You talk about 2 other strategies to leverage as well, content and coding. I remember Mark Cuban once talking at an event I was at about how coding looks hard to people that don't do it. He said, but it's like learning a language. Once you know how to do it, it's far easier. So there's this barrier to entry where you and I, Nick, think that it's like, I hear people coding. I'm like, oh God, no, I can't do that. Content seems very easy to me because it's what I do every day. Content and coding. Who are these best for when I'm trying to leverage income into more income?
So on the coding side, it's just for anyone who wants to be technical, and you can use code to get a job. Obviously now with AI, and AI can do so much programming, it's changing the labor market quite a bit. But at the same time, you still need to know how to code. So I'm a data scientist by training, and so I know how to code a little bit. I'm not like a full-on full-stack software developer, but I know enough to be dangerous. And now with an AI tool, I can do even more. So I've built like these calculators on my website where it's like people want to look up the historical returns of the S&P 500, and that is something AI still can't do, thankfully. And so for now, if you want like, oh, I want the dividend reinvested, inflation adjusted return from, I don't know, January 1980 to December 1989, I can give that to you, right? Or I can do it if you're buying over time. Like, so that's an example of using a piece of code to create something. And now people visit that website, and then I run web ads. And so I get, a penny or something every time someone goes there. That's an example of using code and leverage. And obviously I have an audience, so people know who I am. If you created, they're not you, but just someone without an audience created this, and they could put out the calculator, unless it's way, way better, most people probably aren't going to hear about it and use it, right? So that's code. On the content side, you obviously know that very well. That's putting out content where a lot of people, we're going to spend whatever, let's say an hour talking about various things on this podcast, but that's going to be replicated over thousands and tens of thousands of times every time someone downloads and listens to this conversation, right? I don't have to go and, hey, let's get them on a 3-way call. Let's have this combo. Let's do it again. And then the combo is different next time. And oh, wait, did we say that last time? It would take us the rest of our lives to have this one conversation with every person that's going to download, if you really think of it that way. But we only have to do it once. So 1 hour of your time is now being replicated thousands of times. That's because of the internet and the content distribution system and everything. But that's why it's so useful. And that's true with books. It's true with podcasts and many other things. That's why it can be very helpful.
The limits you talk about, to your point, you already said that coding is a technical thing. So that's going to be difficult for a lot of people. Content really gets you from level 2 to level 4. It's not going to get you past level 4. Is that just because of the amount that it pays?
In general, unless like you have to write Atomic Habits or Psychology of Money, you have to write like one of the biggest books of the decade to get out of level 4. Like even if you sell 1 million copies of a book, don't get me wrong, that's a lot of money, but let's say you made $2 million pre-tax. Okay, after tax, you made $1 million. That's not going to get you past 10 million, right? So
Still not
you need
there.
to sell either a lot more, or you need to use that content to leverage and sell a higher value product or something that's like a higher value business. And once again, that requires another form of leverage. And the difficulty with content and code is just there's so much competition, especially now with AI can write code for you. Content can be mass produced. Writing can be mass produced. All these things, because of that, it's just the bar's higher. And so competition, it's harder now to stick out. And so you have to have even higher quality stuff to really win over people and win their attention.
I was fascinated by the 3rd chapter of your book, which is where you look at investing. And I want to touch on this before we say goodbye, because you looked at these 7 different assets: cash, vehicles, primary residence, retirement funds, real estate investments, mutual fund stocks, and business interest. What did you find was different based on the different level people were in when it came to these 7 different assets?
So in general, people lower on the wealth ladder, and I'll just say that's levels 1, 2, and 3, have most of their assets in cash, their vehicle, and their home. And then people higher on the wealth ladder, that's levels 4, 5, and 6, have most of their assets in stocks, bonds, retirement accounts, real estate, and their own businesses. So in general, the takeaway from that is people lower on the wealth ladder don't own a lot of income producing assets. People higher on the wealth ladder own a lot of income producing assets. And in each wealth level, the average percentage in income producing assets goes up. On average, levels 1 to 3 have less than 25% of their assets as income producing ones, so like stocks, bonds, etc. In levels 4 through 6, it's over half of their assets are income producing assets. The takeaway is it's more income producing assets all the way up the wealth ladder. And it makes sense. If you have $100 million, it's very unlikely someone's like, oh yeah, I just sold my business and I just own my home now. Like, no, they're probably going to own another business. They're going to diversify. They're going to have all sorts of stuff they're going to do with that, or they may still retain their business. And if you actually look on the wealth ladder, people in levels 5 and 6 have more of their assets in an individual business than any other wealth level, because that's how it works. They usually start a business that they own a lot of, and that's how they build their wealth in the first place.
Some of the things that struck me just from a financial planning standpoint, level 1 people holding cash makes a bunch of sense, because if every decision matters, if I've got that cash cushion, one bad break isn't going to screw me. And the second thing is, it also strikes me that looking at the huge levels of debt to net worth ratio for people in level 1 makes sense. You haven't built assets yet. Minimizing that debt as much as possible really has an outsized return on that investment of minimizing debt, because if you minimize debt, you're getting to level 2 a bunch easier than somebody goes from level 2 to level 3 or level 3 to level 4 if they minimize their debt.
Yeah, I think it just has a bigger impact, obviously lower on the wealth ladder, because it can impact your financial security amongst a bunch of other things. So yeah, I agree with you. People in level one don't have a lot of assets. So I can't have 90% of my assets in a business when I don't even have that much. I mean, what business is worth only $9,000, right? You see my point? It's very unlikely unless you basically just came up with an idea in a garage. I think that's another piece of it as well. It's just they don't have as much in assets. So what they have is their vehicle, some cash, maybe a home, or by level 2 and level 3, definitely the home makes up a bigger portion.
It was funny looking at saving for retirement. I get on level 1, you've got a bunch of day-to-day priorities. Level 2, 10,000 to 100,000 retirement plays, a little piece. I would have thought in level 3, you'd see a big jump up in retirement accounts, but it's truly, Nick, not until somebody gets to level 4. Like, why is this a level 4 strategy and not as much a level 3? Or is the point it should be level 3, but the way it is now, it just happens to be level 4?
The issue is if you look in level 3, I mean, most of their assets are in their primary residence. So they buy their home, they have some retirement accounts, they don't have nothing, but the people in level 3 that are doing that, they're not maxing their retirement accounts. They're putting in they're getting their match, they're doing their thing. And if you do it over a long time, it ends up being a small portion of your assets, but it's not going to compare to your home, which you're putting in a much larger payment every single month. I think that's what's driving the difference. And you can see like over time that really builds into those in level 4 are probably maxing or they're close to maxing, and they have stocks on the outside. Maybe they own other real estate. And so that makes the difference there.
Okay. So if somebody is level 3, because that's a huge part of our audience, right? People with 100,000 to $1 million, big part of the Stacking Benjamins community. What's the strategy then? Is it to invest less in that primary residence initially so I can sock more away into my retirement and solidify that earlier, get financial independence earlier? Or is it just a natural, or do I work more on the income side, right?
It's the income side.
It's the income side.
Yeah, if we looked at, and it's actually funny, and I look at the panel study of income dynamics, it's from the University of Michigan. It follows the same set of households over time. So I can see, hey, this person started here, and here was their income in all these years, and here's their spending, and I can follow people. So I basically said, hey, what's the difference between people that start in level 3 and make it to level 4 over, let's say, 10 or 20 years versus those that start in level 3 and stay in level 3 over 10 or 20 years? Now, the people that stay in level 3, they still build wealth. They're still doing fine.
Yeah, they're going to be okay.
But the people that make it to level 4, the biggest difference is their income. The income's just higher. Their starting income's higher. So it's just, they needed just more time to get there. And so focusing on that income, getting that higher, and then it makes it much easier to save and put more into income producing assets and have a bigger retirement account, et cetera. So I think that's really the wedge. And I know it's like, oh yeah, I wish we all had a magic wand and we can all raise our incomes. It doesn't work that way, obviously, but realizing that, looking at the data, that is most of it. That's most of the difference there.
And for our community that's just starting out, Nick, going from level 1 to level 2, just people that are on the beginning end of becoming a stacker, what are some of those biggest keys?
I think you should think about wealth a little more broadly than just money. Obviously, like you're tracking dollars and cents to get out of level 1. That's going to be the biggest impact you're going to see from money. It's just having that base level of security. Who else can help? You think about friends, family, network, anything you can do to kind of start that journey and get you out of level 1 so then you can help others in the same situation as you, to help others up the wealth ladder. I just think that's the most important thing, because the amount of stress that's reduced once you're in level 2 and you're like, hey, I don't have to worry about my rent and I don't have to worry about my food at the grocery store. You're good at that point. I mean, it doesn't mean you're set for life, but the stress levels just drop dramatically after that point. I think you can look at just what happened during COVID. There were so many people that got these COVID checks and said, oh my God, I've never had excess money like this before in my life. And that was from one $1,500 check or one $800 check. Imagine having 10 grand sitting in an account and being like, yeah, I'm feeling really comfortable now.
I remember the first time I got a comma in my check, and I thought that was the most badass thing. When there was a comma and I was making more than $1,000, it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do with all this money? The book is called The Wealth Ladder: Proven Strategies for Every Step of Your Financial Life. And it was available yesterday.
Yeah, it's out now. So thanks for having me on. This is great timing.
Congratulations on your recent marriage.
Thank you.
You'll notice, Nick, that I have less hair every time we talk. So but that's not marriage, that's kids.
Oh, okay. Okay. So give me a few years. We'll come talk. My hair's it's already starting. We're starting the journey there, but give me a few years.
I think that's your role at Ritholtz that does that.
Yeah, possibly. Who knows?
Hey there, Stackers. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and today let's go all the way back to the turn of the century. Turn of the century! That long ago? Yes, I'm talking about the year 2000. Heck, were there even cars back then? Doubt it. Because on today's date, in that year, one cyclist proved his dominance in the sport of bicycle racing by winning his second Tour de France. An unusual feat for an American cyclist. He probably bicycled fast because there weren't even phones back then, were there? Maybe he had to bike quickly to get to a place where he could fill out his Wordle, since he couldn't do that online. Regardless, here's today's question. Who was this cyclist? I'll be back right after I go practice the unicycle. Oh man, what if he rode with just one wheel? That'd be impressive. Anybody can do it on two.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
You didn't start a business just to keep the lights on. You're here to sell more today than yesterday. You're here to win. Lucky for you, Shopify built the best converting checkout on the planet. Like the just one tapping, ridiculously fast acting, sky-high sales stacking, champion of checkouts. That's the good stuff right there. So if your business is in it to win it, win with Shopify. Start your free trial today at shopify.com/win.
Did you know Fast Growing Trees is America's largest and most trusted online nursery with thousands of trees and plants and over 2 million happy customers? Whether you're planting fruit trees, adding privacy, brightening things up with flowers, or bringing in houseplants, Fast Growing Trees has it all. Even better, they can help you find options that are right for your climate, your space, and lifestyle. Click Order Grow. Every plant arrives healthy with the Alive and Thrive guarantee straight to your door. So if you're ready to get planting, this is the moment. Right now, they have great deals on spring planting essentials, up to half off on select plants. And listeners to our show get 20% off their first purchase when using the code WWO at checkout. That's an additional 20% off. Better plants and better growing at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code WWO at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code WWO. Now's the perfect time to plant. Let's grow together. Use WWO to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Go to growingfasttrees.com for details.
Hey there, Stackers. I'm unicycle trier, outer, and guy who banged up his knees, Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug. Way back at the turn of the century, a.k.a. the year 2000, or Y2K for all the hipsters who were calling it that back then. They were just coming online with the new dance crazes like the Carlton and music like Britney Spears. They must have listened to that on their Victrola, didn't they? Also in 2000, on today's date, an American cyclist won the Tour de France for the second time. That's how you say it. I mean, I'm not making that up. He won it for the second time, asserting some dominance in the sport. Who was he? Well, sadly, many of those accolades were later taken from him as he finally admitted to cheating. That man was none other than cyclist Lance Armstrong. And now, three guys who could cheat all day and they would still lose the Tour de France: Joe, OG, and Doc G.
Yeah, I don't think we'd ever part. What's funny is, though, Jordan, is it turned out that not just Lance was cheating, pretty much most everybody in the Tour de France was cheating.
Pretty much everybody.
And the thing, of course, Joe, is I would have got that answer right. How come you don't do that on a Friday? I would have got that one.
There's two American cyclists we can name.
I just want to know, is it cheating if everybody's doing it?
I know, right? That is 100% my question. If everybody's doing it, is it then cheating, or is it that the de facto rule?
Speaking of cycling, I have a friend of mine who just celebrated a milestone birthday. Speaking of milestone birthdays from our thing on Monday, she did, I think it's called the triple bypass. She and some friends. You start in Littleton, Colorado, and go to Avon, Colorado.
And what does it have to do with heart disease? Because as a doctor, triple bypass is usually something we do for people who are having heart attacks.
I think it's what you want to have after pedaling your bike 110 miles up a mountain.
Through 3 different passes, apparently?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
That sounds tough.
There you go. That's what it's about.
Well, congratulations to her.
That's quite an accomplishment.
Big thanks to Nick Maggiulli for coming down to the basement. And the thing that strikes me, OG, is again this idea that yes, you can make it to $100,000. You can make it to $1 million, maybe not 10 million.
Not that attitude.
But you can make it very far up the wealth ladder without making a significant amount of money, but it does make it a lot harder. It makes it a lot harder if you don't think about how do I just earn more? I think that we underplay that a lot in this community because we're so passionate about how do we save money and how do we focus on the things in our life that actually truly light us up, right? We're big into Vicki Robin and this idea of not really thinking through our consumerism.
Not all
but
of
I
us.
think we also then, well, not everybody, but I think it detracts from what Nick said, which is it's exponentially, all the data shows it's exponentially easier to get there if you just make a few more dollars.
You have so much margin of safety for screw ups. You know, he talks about these different levels of where money decisions are impactful, right? $100,000, you know, you can, $100 is impactful. $1 million, $10 million, you can like what your fudge factor is. I think about it like in terms of a little bit of income along the way here. And I don't have any science behind this. I'm not a data scientist. I just have 27 years of talking to people about money. But I kind of think there's a couple of different bend points in income where it matters. Around 80K or everything below 80K of income for a normal household, right? One or two people, everything counts, right? You're paying attention to your grocery bill. You know where the cheapest gas is. If you say, hey, I need to get gas, my mom doesn't make a lot of income. She'll say, oh, hey, if you go down another block and then turn right, that's the Clark station. They have the cheapest fuel. And for people that make over 80K, a lot of times you go, I need gas, blinker, turn in. You know, you're not going to make the choice like if it's like literally the one across the street that's less expensive, but you might make the choice of how do I get in and out of this without having to do 2 left turns? You know what I mean? Like you're going to go to the one that's most convenient. I think at 150K of income, maybe it's 170 now, you really stop paying attention to grocery bills. I think you just go to the grocery store, you buy what you want. You buy what you need. You know, you're not substituting beef for pork or pork for beef, depending. But below that, you're making a little bit more educated choice. And I'm not saying that you're not shopping smart, but you know, if you want cherries today, you're buying cherries today. You don't care if they're in season or out of season. But before that, maybe you do. And I think around 300K, you stop caring how much it is to go out to eat. And I think if you expand on this a little bit more, you think about like the impacts of income and how you can really screw up with a lot of income and still save 50 grand a year. If you make $500,000 a year, you can piss away 300,000. You know, you can just light on fire 25K a month and still save 50 grand and go pay your $150,000 in taxes.
This is what's amazing to me about Nick's work is how often though, OG, those numbers of income correlate to net worth. Like
100% they do.
It blows me away. Cause you know, for me, I'm like, no, there's not a lot of correlation. Nick's like, yeah, you wouldn't think so, but there is. If you make $300,000 a year, you probably are the same person who has $2 million in your whatever investments. And if not, you're going to get there fairly quickly.
What is great about Nick's wealth ladder is what you're really talking about is toggling on the continuum of margin versus impact, right? So when you're at the beginning of the wealth ladder, when you're at the first rung, you have almost no margin, but then little things have a big impact. Like not buying that latte once a week has a big impact because you're on the lowest level of the ladder. On the other hand, once you start going up the ladder, you have a heck of a lot more margin. But then it's also harder to have an impact, whether that's spending or even whether that's making. You got to make a heck of a lot more for it to have an impact. Yeah. But you've also got to spend a heck of a lot more for it to have an impact.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So again, it's margin and impact, and it's just changes depending on where you are in the wealth ladder. And that's why I think actually it's pretty brilliant. Yeah.
You're going to pass up the $1,000. I can make $1,000 quick opportunity because those are a dime a dozen when you've got, you know, $10 million. You're like, oh, 1,000. No, pass. I'm going to spend that same time on the, you know, $100,000 opportunity.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think it also makes me think about the business that we're in, but the world we live in as it relates to online financial advice and or making commentary on other people's lifestyle choices, financial goals, the things they do or choose not to do, because everybody's in a different spot. And I think this also illustrates like how these different things have different impacts for people based on where they are in their financial life. I can remember this story, and maybe this is a little too far out of bounds here. My brother and I were talking about socks, Steak Brother. He famously, the reason we call him Steak Brother is because he ordered the most expensive steak on the menu, not knowing that special, the chef special, was not blue light special a la Kmart, but rather the most expensive thing.
Everybody in the back is high-fiving themselves.
High-fiving, like, we got one. We got a live one. And the bill came out, it was $150 for his steak. And magically, his arms got really short when the bill came, T-Rex arms. But anyway, so we call him Steak Brother. He and I were talking about, I don't know, as brothers do, talking about what kind of socks are you wearing these days? I talked about the socks. I was like, these great socks, man. They're awesome. They, and they come in these, it's a 12-pack and da-da-da. I said, here's the link. And he sent to me, he goes, are these things $100 for a 12-pack? And I'm like, I honestly don't even know. I just was researching socks and I found these to be the best. And I sent him, he's like, God dang, man, I hope one day I'm like you, that I get to, you just blow $100. And he wasn't being a jackwagon about it or kind of throwing my face in it. But it did remind me that the decisions that we make at different incomes and net worth are really, it's not fair to compare them to other people, because the $100, like half the people listening to this right now are going, $100 for socks. What the F is wrong with you? And half the people are going, yeah, man, those are great socks.
Yeah. Oh, gee, let's put this into context. A lot of our stackers that follow the show closely know, which is frequent contributor Paula Pant is spending a ton of money on chemo for her cat.
Oh boy.
Well, which is something that you and I have already talked about this. We wouldn't do.
Yeah.
But still getting judgy about that, not knowing
absolutely
what's
She's
going on.
In a different spot.
Absolutely. 100% in a different spot. I'm like, I got Cooper sitting next to me right now. Sorry, dude. You would be gone.
Dun, dun, dun.
I think this is also one of the problems with gurus.
Yeah.
Often people are listening to gurus who are at a very different place in the wealth ladder than they are. So
like
if you're listening to Grant Cardone, I was going to say, if you're listening to Grant Cardone and you're at the beginning of the wealth ladder and you're at stage 1 and you're just trying to make it to zero at $10,000, he's singing a song that doesn't fit for you.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that stuff. And I think it's also important to recognize, all advice is not the same. One size does not fit all. You are where you are. And if you catch yourself, to your point, being a little judgy about like, I can't believe OG spent $100 on socks. What a waste of money. It's okay. Like, I recognize that I don't owe you an explanation for how I choose to run my life, nor do you owe me one, how you choose to do yours. And that's perfectly fine, right? Wanting what one wants is a rightfully selfish process. We got that from our fearless leader many years ago.
Absolutely. And we did talk about this before when we dove into consumerism the week that Katie Gaddy Tassin was our mentor, that you do owe yourself an explanation though. Like if I'm on that first, if I'm on that first rung,
I don't owe you one.
Agreed. But if I'm on that first rung of the wealth ladder and I'm investing in my brother-in-law's restaurant and I have less than $10,000 to my name, I got to be explaining myself where that actually fits. I want to talk to you, Jordan, because initially we were talking about the amount of money that you make. You and I have talked about this, that you don't keep a dollar by dollar budget. And it just seems to me that in your life, that 0 to 10,000, because you chose a higher paying career, that first rung of the wealth ladder for you was a blip. It was maybe a very short point in time and you were over the $10,000 mark.
Yeah, and let's be honest, I also grew up in a relatively wealthy family. I really didn't have that.
Even if you didn't have 10,000, you had access to 10,000.
Yeah, and I had grandparents who passed away and left me little bits of money here and there too. So that really wasn't part of my experience. Eventually, I was tracked also educationally into a place that I was going to make a lot of money. Now, granted, I started working about 14 and ended up making a lot of money in high school because I was just a fairly driven person. So I always kind of had money around.
You worked with juvenile delinquents. You stood on the corner and told them when the cops were coming.
That was it. I was I was the lookout.
You were the lookout.
Let's do our headline.
Hello, darlings. And now it's time for your favorite part of the show, our Stacking Benjamin's headlines.
Last week, we talked about goal setting and achievement, and I posted in our Facebook group a meme from Henry David Thoreau that's always spoken to me. It said, what you get from achieving your goals is not as great as what you become from achieving your goals. And this idea that it's not about the end goal that most of us think that it is. It's actually this work that we do toward the goal that ends up becoming the big thing. It's funny because when I posted that, I was immediately supersized by two stackers, David and Philip, who sent this in. I wanted this to be our headline for today, guys. And this is a little bit long, but I hope you stick with it because it's an important message that came out just last week from the number one golfer in the world, a guy named Scotty Scheffler, talking about this attainment in golf of the highest rung or winning a tournament.
I think I said something after the Byron this year about like, it feels like you work your whole life to celebrate winning a tournament for like a few minutes. It only lasts a few minutes, that kind of euphoric feeling. Like to win the Byron Nelson Championship at home, I literally worked my entire life to become good at golf, to have an opportunity to win that tournament. And you win it, you celebrate, you get to hug my family, my sister's there. It's such an amazing moment. And then it's like, okay, now what are we going to eat for dinner? You know, life goes on. Is it great to be able to win tournaments and to accomplish the things I have in the game of golf? Yeah. I mean, it brings tears to my eyes just to think about, because it's literally worked my entire life to become good at this sport, and to have that kind of sense of accomplishment, I think is a pretty cool feeling. You know, to get to live out your dreams is very special. But at the end of the day, I'm not out here to inspire the next generation of golfers. I'm not here to inspire somebody else to be the best player in the world, because what's the point? You know, this is not a fulfilling life. It's fulfilling from a sense of accomplishment, but it's not fulfilling from a sense of like the deepest places of your heart. You know, there's a lot of people that make it to what they thought was going to fulfill them in life, and then you get there and all of a sudden you get to number one in the world, and then they're like, what's the point? And I really do believe that, because, you know, what is the point? You're like, why do I want to win this tournament so bad? That's something that I wrestle with on a daily basis. It's like showing up at the Masters every year. It's like, why do I want to win this golf tournament so badly? Why do I want to win the Open Championship so badly? I don't know, because if I win, it's going to be awesome for about 2 minutes. And then we're going to get to the next week and it's going to be like, hey, you won 2 majors this year. How important is it for you to win the FedEx Cup playoffs? And it's just like, we're back here again, you know? So we really do. We work so hard for such little moments. And, you know, I'm kind of a sicko. I love putting in the work. I love being able to practice. I love getting out to live out my dreams. But at the end of the day, sometimes I just don't understand the point.
It's pretty wild. You're the number one golfer in the world. Mentioned that Jordan, truly, I mean, this is kind of the point, I think, of the purpose code. And also,
I was about to say, do you have Scotty Scheffler's address? Maybe we should send him a copy of my book.
I got it.
I think it would clear it all up
One
for
second.
And your new book about meaning that I know you're working on right now, that you're doing a lot of research on meaning. But it truly isn't like I'm going to show up there and it's all of a sudden unicorns and rainbows, because you're going to celebrate for 3 minutes. It's a great 3 minutes. And then you're on to the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the real big difference between what I call big P purpose and little P purpose. Big P purpose is goal oriented. What Scotty Scheffler right there is talking about is he's talking about goal oriented purpose, as opposed to what I call little P purpose, which is process oriented purpose. And here's the issue. If you set your sense of happiness on big P purpose, goal oriented purpose, one of a few things happen. First of all, because it's big P purpose, it's hard. Like, not everyone can win a majors the way Scotty Scheffler can. So if that's your goal of purpose, first of all, 99% of the time you're going to fail. So automatically, it's kind of a losing proposition. But let's say you're like Scotty Scheffler and you succeed. Well, one of two things happens once you succeed. There's this thing called hedonic adaptation. We have a happiness set point. And the problem is, when you do something like win a major, your happiness goes up briefly, but we tend to hedonically adapt, or what's called habituate, back to our baseline level of happiness. So even if it does make you happy, it's brief and you fall back down. And so if you're not thoughtful about it, it's like, well, what's the next thing? How am I going to double down and win yet another one so I can bring back this good feeling? That's part of it. You know what the other part is? The other part is loss aversion. Once you hit that high, you become petrified that you're going to lose it. I don't know if any of you guys saw Swamp King on Netflix, Urban Meyer, Florida Gators.
Missed that one.
It's a fantastic series and a perfect version of loss aversion. Season 1 is all about his first season with the Florida Gators. He talks about the trials and tribulations. He finally gets to the national championship and they win it. And at the end of season 1, it's like the last minute of the last episode of season 1. And he's like, and I was on such a high. And then he looks at the camera and he says, and little did I know, I was about to have the worst next year of my life. Why was the next year the worst year of his life? Because he had all the pressure of trying to win another championship and he didn't get there. And so we're petrified that once we even get to that thing we're striving for, we're going to lose it. And so if your version of happiness is all based on big P purpose, the likelihood is you're going to spend a lot of your time doing stuff that you may or may not like. That's the process part. To get to this goal, which is fleeting. A better version is to really love what you do. And Scotty Scheffler actually is a great example of someone, he probably loves playing golf. He probably loves the camaraderie. He loves the relationships he's formed. He probably loves even getting out and practicing. So he maybe doesn't love every minute. But actually, he's describing process-oriented purpose. It's just the goals sometimes get in the way.
Well, and I would attest that's why Scotty Scheffler is the number one golfer, is because he loves the process.
Well, he said that, and I think he was answering a question where somebody was basically asking the question of like, how important is it to you? And he was like getting around to the point of like, none of this matters to me. The thing that I enjoy most, and he says at the very end, the thing I enjoy most is being on the range and grinding. And that translates into what you guys think is the win, which is, winning. But he's like, I'm good. Jordan, I was laughing there for a second because you asked if I watched the show Swamp People or whatever. You're talking about gators and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm going, yeah, I would never watch a show about gators. And then I realized you're talking about a football game. And I'm like, oh, wait.
How come I haven't watched this?
I might watch that, actually.
Yeah, Urban Meyer, right? Urban Meyer, I think.
Then I'm definitely not watching it.
Yeah, but OG, you've talked about this in the past, which is this idea of living in the gain and not in the gap, I think also pertains to this.
I mean, constantly striving for an impossible horizon, the infinity, and it's not possible. The only way that you can measure yourself is you can only measure backwards, right? You can dream forward and that's fine. But when you measure, you have to measure backwards. And the other thing that Doc G said that I thought was really funny was basically he explained my resting B face as being my normal status in life, which I also thought was pretty funny. I was like, oh, so that's just, I'm okay the way I am, Doc. I appreciate that, man. That, me getting back to my resting B face is kind of my normal status.
I think there's one other thing that we should be careful not to miss here. And the point is, a lot of people strive for these wins, these big audacious goals, because they don't feel very good inside. And they're like, well, if I can just reach this big audacious goal, if I can just get to this, then I'll feel good. And it never works. It never works. So purpose is kind of what I think is doing the things that light us up. But I often talk about the difference between meaning and purpose. And meaning is that kind of feeling of enoughness, which hopefully we have from dealing with our traumas and problems of the past, right? You look at your childhood and when you were growing up and you had all these hurdles to get over, and hopefully you overcame them and can tell yourself a story about your past where you're like, wow, I had this really tough stuff happen to me, but I overcame it and I was enough. And so I don't really have to prove myself anymore. Like I don't have to win the championship to be a good person. If you can't deal with that past enough to feel good about it, you get on this achievement treadmill of trying to keep on achieving your way to enough or achieving your way to feeling purposeful. And that doesn't work real well.
Doug's trauma is that we've cut him off 3 times in a row.
I'm still dealing with it. I'll eventually get out of the fetal position in the corner that I'm in right now. But I got so excited when I first heard this clip from Scotty Scheffler and I used to talk about this with project teams often about the comparison of sports to the rest of our lives. I think we love sports and movies too, but we love sports because it is in 3 hours, it is life contained. You have a beginning, a middle, and end. You have an outcome. Hopefully it's the one you're hoping for, that your team wins, and you get that rush of endorphins of some kind of success. But it's so compressed that it's easy to identify success and failure. Whether, you were in the game or you're just rooting for your team, you get that rush. But the problem with the rest of our lives, whether it's our work life or our home life or anything else, is it's very slow and it's very difficult to recognize when you've crossed that milestone and to feel that rush because it took so long to get there. Even if it's over the course of 3 days, it took too long to get there to oftentimes feel that rush. And so I used to talk often to project teams to say, look, we set up this plan and we've talked ad nauseum. That sounds bad, but we talk almost every week about set up your plan, your financial plan, your life plan, set that plan up. and stick to it. If you set that plan up and you have milestones along the way, you have to make sure you force yourself to celebrate those milestones that you've reached in the same way you would celebrate the Lions winning the NFC Championship. Yes, it's going to happen, but you've got to make celebrations out of those things so that you know when you've hit them and you get that excitement out of it. It's the only way you're going to build the momentum. But instead, it's easier to turn on the TV on Saturday or Sunday and watch a golf tournament or watch a football game.
You know, it's a really great model for this. The amazing series Ted Lasso, right? Ted Lasso, if you ever watch the series, right, he comes in and he starts coaching soccer, right? And he's never been a soccer coach before. But he doesn't become a soccer coach by winning a championship. If you watch the show, he actually fails often. His teams fail often. But he truly becomes what he wants to be, a soccer coach, by the day in, day out process of doing it. And that's why, in fact, one of the wonderful things about that series is it's a beautiful version of purpose and happiness. And it has almost nothing to do with the wins, because if you watch the show, they lose more often than they win.
It's this inside out transformation. We go from thinking that we suck because we don't win very much to we're good enough. We are good enough.
You become the thing by doing the thing, not by reaching the goal.
Yeah. And then they start winning. It's a great conversation. And I love that this idea of the wealth ladder and where does it sit certainly makes life easier as you're chasing your purpose. But if your purpose is to get to $10 million and then you're going to be happy, or $100 million and you're going to be happy, we've got some news for you. That's not the thing. And again, big thanks to David and Philip for also sharing those in our community. Speaking of community, we've got one big thing, Doug, in the neighborhood, and I see it right here. So I'm just going to run with it if that's all right with you. Prices going up on our guides. First of all, before I get to prices rising, our new college planning guide is going to come online on August 1st. Everything from how to plan together with college, about college as a family, prioritizing that, kind of the rubric to think through the college decision, and also success in college, as well as, of course, the idea of how to pay for it. Everything from 529 plans to filling out the FAFSA form and more. That will be coming online in just over a week. But at the same time, all of our guides are going up in price. That includes our tax time guide and our HR guide. And with HR, it's just about benefits time. If you think you're going to need some help with your benefits, no time like now to buy it before the price goes up. StackingBenjamins.com/guides gets you there. And we want to tell our longtime stackers who listen to us now that the price is going up. And you buy it one time, and every month we update it. In fact, I can't say anything today, but I'm very much hoping when the July update drops that I have maybe the most exciting announcement about the update this month. And if not, it's coming fairly soon. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have even said that, but some exciting updates coming to the guide that I just can't talk about. But
and prices going up to like what, 12,000?
Yeah, 12,000 or $120, whichever one's lower. So $120, buy it one time, never buy it again. We update it every month. StackingBenjamins.com/guides. Yeah, it's 12 easy payments of $1,000 each. No, definitely not. Somebody half listening is going to think that that really is the price. That is not the price. All right, that's going to do it for today. Jordan, what's coming up at Earn and Invest, man?
We continue doing our Monday 10 Things episodes and our Thursday interviews. We're about to do an Ask Me Anything episode for our community episode this month. So lots of stuff going on.
Awesome. And that's at Earn and Invest, our brother show. So pause this. Go subscribe to Jordan's podcast. Thanks for riding along with us today, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Doug, take it from here, man. What's on our to-do list for today?
Well, Joe, first, take some advice from Nick Maggiulli. When you're starting out, keep a cash cushion and sweat the small stuff. But most of all, work on earning more money. That makes the road easier. Second, achieving goals. Come on, how many times do we have to say this? It's about the journey, not the outcome. But the big lesson? These neighborhood kids are saps. They challenged me to a bike race without realizing I'm rocking an e-bike. I totally left them eating my dust on the uphills. What losers. Thanks to Nick Maggiulli for joining us today. You'll find his hot new book, The Wealth Ladder, wherever books are sold, but also using the link in our show notes at stackingbenjamins.com. And finally, thanks to Doc G for joining us today. Looking for in-depth money discussions on diverse topics? Visit our brother show, Earn and Invest, wherever you're listening to us today. This show is the property of SB Podcasts, LLC, copyright 2025, and is created by Joe Saul-Sehy. Joe gets help from a few of our neighborhood friends. You'll find out about our awesome team at stackingbenjamins.com, along with the show notes and how you can find us on YouTube and all the usual social media spots. Come say hello. Oh yeah, and before I go, not only should you not take advice from these nerds, don't take advice from people you don't know. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any financial decisions, speak with a real financial advisor. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and we'll see you next time back here at the Stacking Benjamins Show.